Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
5-year-old Brittany Fish vanished from outside her home.
A serial child kidnapper.
He started wrapping my head in duct tape, tied my arms with barbed wire.
Puts you under a tarp.
Years later, a chilling revelation.
He'd watched you.
He had gone by her house and actually thought about kidnapping her again.
You've never heard that, right?
Plus, one of his other victims speaks out.
She's going to share her story for the first time ever.
She is the Jane Doe responsible for his capture.
These two girls have never met.
An emotional Dr. Phil daytime exclusive.
Today's story is a parent's worst nightmare and rocked a small town in upstate New York nearly 15 years ago. It's a story of a serial child kidnapper and abuser who lived amongst his neighbors and friends completely unnoticed until two young girls helped bring him to justice. The story starts on a sidewalk just like this. A 5-year-old girl named Brittany Fish was riding her Barbie scooter outside her house. But on that fateful day, all those years ago, Brittany's life took a tragic turn just 2 weeks shy of her 6th birthday.
There are no words to describe the past 24 hours for this 5-year-old girl abducted early Saturday evening.
5-year-old Brittany Fish vanished from outside her home.
I remember the day I was abducted like it was yesterday.
Little Brittany disappeared shortly before 6 p.m. Saturday, only 2 blocks from her home, sending panic throughout the neighborhood.
I was riding my scooter to my friend's house. A white car pulled up to the stop sign. A man got out of the car. He had an evil smirk on his face. All of a sudden, he wrapped his arms around me, covered my mouth, and then shoved me into the backseat of the car. I started kicking and screaming, and then he pulled a gun to my head and said, "Stop, or else I will shoot you."
The only trace left behind, her scooter, found in a storm drain.
It's like she vanished. When you have a child that's missing with no evidence of anything.
I was extremely terrified. The man forced me to take my shirt off and perform a sexual act on him. Then he forced himself on me. I had no idea what was happening.
Hours later, Brittany's abductor dropped her off at a vacant building in DeWitt.
He went to the trunk of his car and grabbed barbed wire and duct tape. With the duct tape, he wrapped it around my whole entire head, hair, eyes, nose, and mouth. He took the barbed wire and hog-tied me with my ankles and my wrists behind me. After all of that, he then put a tarp over me and left. As I was laying there under the tarp, I had no idea what was going to happen next. I thought I was going to die.
As little Brittany Fish lay hog-tied, her head bound with duct tape, the frantic search for her continued.
A massive search to find missing 5-year-old Brittany Fish.
Within an hour of Brittany's disappearance, hundreds of neighbors were out on the street with flashlights, searching every nook and cranny on the city's north side.
As I was laying underneath the tarp, I was struggling to get free, but I had absolutely no success. The barbed wire was digging into my skin.
For hours, Brittany laid under that tarp in the blustery cold.
I was laying on a cement slab. It was thundering, lightning, pouring rain. I only had on shorts and a t-shirt. To keep warm, I had to keep urinating on myself. I was terrified at that point. Throughout the whole 22 hours, I kept yelling, I love my mom, I love my dad, and my family. I was thinking somebody could potentially hear me.
We were very pessimistic that we would find her alive. She would be the best evidence of capturing the offender. Why leave a witness?
We waited all night that night. It was very traumatic and chaotic.
Then the unthinkable happened. A property owner visiting the lot heard what sounded like a puppy. When he lifted the tarp, it was Brittany.
When the man who rescued me lifted up the tarp, he said, "Hold on, honey. Help is on the way. I'm going to call 911 right now. You're safe." I was ecstatic. I knew I was safe at that moment. I truly felt like my nightmare was over.
Sadly, stories like Brittany's are not uncommon. These are just a few images of thousands of children who are currently missing, some of whom vanished decades ago. Now, miraculously, Brittany was found alive. Her case and her bravery began the search for a serial child predator. In a daytime exclusive, please welcome Brittany Fish. Brittany, so good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, you were abducted just 3 or 4 houses away, right?
I was.
And your kidnapper pulled up and pulled right up to the curb, right?
He did.
And exited his car? And what did he say to you first? What was the first thing he said to you?
He said, hold on, I need to get a butterfly catcher out of my trunk.
Get a butterfly catcher out of his trunk.
Now, at 5 years old, I was naive. Who would think that, you know, a butterfly catcher would do any damage?
Right. And so did he go to his trunk?
He did.
And what did he do?
He looked like he was rummaging through something. I knew there wasn't an actual butterfly catcher.
Right.
And then right after.
And when he came out from behind the trunk, what did he do?
He put his arms around my mouth and told me to get into the back of the car as he shoved me to the floorboards.
Okay. And was he armed at this point?
I didn't see any weapon at that point. It was later on that I saw a weapon.
Okay, you did see a weapon later, but not here.
Not right there, no.
Now, the size differential between him and you at this point was, he was 2-3 times bigger than you, because at 5 years old, and I've seen the pictures of you, you weren't big as a minute, right? So you're tiny, and so he scoops you up, and you're completely overpowered, right?
Exactly.
What went through your mind at that point? Do you remember that moment?
At that moment, I was like, am I going to live? Am I going to make it out alive?
So even at 5, you knew this is bad. You knew this could be life-threatening for you.
Exactly.
And at 5, you did have a survival instinct that kicked in.
I did.
And you said when he's taking you away, there was a song that he played over and over. And how long did he drive before you got to a location?
I don't know exactly, at least 20, 30 minutes. And that song just kept playing over and over.
Okay, and you're where at this point?
In the back floorboard of the car.
Okay.
But as I was whimpering,
To an arrest, it also led to a confession of multiple child kidnapping and sexual assault. addict who has been arrested 12 times.
Mom says her life
Dumpster diving, I've eaten fruit out of the garbage.
was taken.
Being in the military. Oh, wait, what now? Now you can't hear me?
My earpiece slipped out.
That's Friday.
Brittany Fish is recovering here at University Hospital in stable condition, found alive late Sunday afternoon.
Bill Walter.
What did he do to you when he put you out of the car?
He started wrapping my whole entire head in duct. About 2 years. He was chasing me up and down stairs with a gun loaded, and I would wake up every night when he pulled the trigger and shot me.
In March 2005, officers arrested Kevin Schaus for abusing a young girl in a separate case.
When I heard the news that Kevin Schaus was finally found and thrown in jail, I finally felt safe again. I could leave my house without being fearful that he was there potentially watching me.
For whatever reason, Schaus just gave up the case that he was under arrest for, gave up Brittany's case, and gave up 2 other very serious sexual assaults.
4 in total.
We didn't have the DNA. We didn't have that thing. We had his confession.
Schaus took a universal guilty plea and was sentenced 20 years to life.
Kevin Schaus will reoffend while he has breath in his lungs. He should never get out, and we pray to God that he never will get out.
Well, next, Schaus wrote multiple startling confessions to police. We're going to hear what he had to say after the break. As this story has unfolded, you've found out that he was involved in a lot of other crimes. And joining us is Brittany Moncrief. She is a Spectrum News Central New York reporter, and she has covered Brittany's story extensively. Brittany, thank you so much for being here. Now, he's confessed to 2 kidnapping cold cases, right?
Kevin Schaus was arrested for sexually assaulting a 4-year-old. She was actually a family friend daughter. And luckily, she spoke up about it. They arrested Kevin for it. And at the time, Detective William Root was on the force. And he actually interrogated Kevin Schaus. And he spoke with him. And his technique is a little different from a lot of other detectives. He takes a calmer approach where he listens to the suspects. And so he also recognized certain things about Kevin that stood out from past cases. So one would be the description that Brittany gave. And so that stood out to Detective Root. And then also Kevin had tattoos that stood out that he recognized from another case where a 16-year-old had mentioned, you know, these same tattoos. So he kept pressuring Kevin and talking to Kevin, and eventually he gave up the current crime that he was arrested for, Brittany's abduction, and then 2 other kidnappings that they didn't even know were related.
Yeah, amazing. Now, from Kevin Schaus's police statement, we have some excerpts. First, about Brittany. He says these are the kind of things that he was giving up under this very skilled interrogation. He said, quote, "I went to a parking lot by the DMV where there is a payphone. I picked up the phone and froze. I thought about going back to her every minute after that. I went and laid down and just cried, watched the news that night, and tried to get into my car to go back and bring her home, but I was terrified, kept thinking it was cold. When I heard she was found, I was overjoyed. I have read everything I could about this in the paper since it happened." You've never heard that, right? You believe that?
Not at all.
John Walsh featured Brittany's case on America's Most Wanted and also presented her with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's Courage Award when she was only 6 years old. They haven't seen each other since that day. Please welcome John Walsh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you, my friend. Love this woman. Congratulations on the marriage.
Thank you.
Getting married. God bless you. I got to say one thing about this girl right here.
Let's see.
This is not a victim. This is a strong survivor right here. So glad to see you. So glad to see you.
Yeah, I was telling her it's her courage and will to live that keeps there from being an empty chair between you and I right now.
95% of stranger abducted cases end up like my son's, dead, murdered.
Right.
Lucky if you find the remains or the body. And this girl just fought every minute of that kidnapping and was using her little, almost 6, you were almost 6, and my son Adam was 6 when he was kidnapped. You were using everything you had to stay alive.
Listen to what Kevin Schaus had to say. This is a voluntary affidavit about a 14-year-old Jane Doe. He said, "I, Kevin J. Schaus, I saw a girl sitting on the swing, showed her the knife and said, 'Don't try going anywhere.'" Very graphic sexual content. I'm not going to be sensational here. I'll just skip over that. "She asked me if I was going to go home because her parents would worry about her. I was in a panic. I've never done anything like this by myself, so I taped her to a tree. Decided to tape her mouth so she couldn't scream. I think I wrapped her mouth, then around the tree. She was struggling to get free. I went berserk. I cut her jeans and her shirt. Her hands broke free. I ran to the car and drove away." This guy's just, I mean...
Coward predator.
Just absolute coward predator.
And I've been doing this since 1981, since Adam was murdered. I have not met a cured pedophile predator yet. And this guy needs to die in jail.
Yeah. Would you go to his parole hearing and make a statement that he should remain in jail?
That's a decision I have not yet made.
You're going to channel your anger to make sure he never gets out of jail.
I will.
All right, well, next, child predator Kevin Schaus was a close family friend of my next guest, and it was their daughter who led to his arrest. We'll meet those parents and hear Schaus' alleged confessions from behind bars after the break.
I never would have in a million years thought that Kevin Schaus would be somebody who would sexually abuse my child. I trusted Kevin with my life.
The suspect sketch was everywhere.
Never once in my mind did I think, you know what, that looks like Kevin.
Brittany Fish was not the only young girl now convicted predator Kevin Schaus preyed upon. Jessica and Pat's daughter, Shay, was 4 years old when she, too, was sexually abused by him. In fact, Kevin was a trusted family friend who was once welcomed into their home. Take a look.
March 2005, officers arrested Kevin Schaus for abusing a young girl in a separate case.
I never would have in a million years thought that Kevin Schaus would be somebody who would sexually abuse my child. He was a very close family friend. He would come to Christmas, Thanksgiving. He was a member of my family. I trusted Kevin with my life. The mindset was, oh, I wonder who we could have watch the kids, and it was Uncle Kevin.
A massive search to find missing 5-year-old Brittany Fish.
The Brittany Fish kidnapping was all over the news, on the TV, in the newspapers. It was very scary. This happened 20 minutes from where we lived. The suspect sketch was everywhere.
Never once in my mind did I think, you know what, that looks like Kevin. Kevin just acted like he always acted. He was normal, calm. He didn't seem like he was afraid of anything. It was just Kevin being Kevin.
Approximately a year after Brittany was kidnapped, I went to the hospital to have my daughter, and he was there to babysit Shay. Several months later, Shaylin told us that Kevin had followed her into the bathroom and had exposed himself to her.
I was beyond shocked. There's no words to describe the feeling that I had.
Immediately after that, we called the police and had them come over and talk to Shay.
While Kevin was in jail, he wrote letters detailing the horrible things that he did and the horrible things that he had planned on doing if he didn't get caught. The detective told us that he was going to start locking kids in storage units and killing them.
Schaus took a universal guilty plea and was sentenced 20 years to life.
He's all around total monster. He never should get out of prison.
You two have been in the background, the fiber of this story, but you have never chosen to share your identity until right now.
Yep.
This is something that happened to her when she was 4 years old.
Yes.
And where was that in juxtaposition to when this happened to Brittany?
I think it was almost a year later.
And he was actually babysitting for you at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. My wife was in the hospital. She was having one of our other daughters, and it was, who could we get to babysit? Uncle Kevin was the perfect choice.
You don't remember him acting nervous or paranoid or anything at all. I mean, that is why, John, what you're saying is so true, and Brittany, what you're saying is so true. This is a cold-blooded psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
They're out looking for him after what he has left her, duct taped her head, barbed wired her hands and feet, left her to die, and he's at a backyard barbecue acting like nothing has happened. That is a cold-blooded psychopath, and that is the fingerprint of a reoffender.
They're vampires that live amongst us. They're good at what they do.
And
Dr.
what we
Phil.
know is that if your children are around, if you're a single parent, a single mother, and your children are around non-biological males, the likelihood of them being abused or molested is 31 times normal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the fact. You can call it what you want, it can be politically correct or not, but statistically, that's the truth. When he was in jail, he did write a letter.
He was so close with my family that he was writing letters with my mom.
Yeah.
What did he say?
He was going to rent a storage unit, get a gun, and kidnap more kids.
In one of the letters that he had written, he had said that and this was in the time after they had found Brittany and she was already home, that he had gone by her house more than a couple times and saw her and actually thought about kidnapping her again. I know you didn't know that, I'm so sorry, but...
What do you think about that?
I was told that he fled the state, so it's terrifying to know that he wasn't gone.
No, he stayed right where he was, stayed in the same apartment he was living in, doing the same stuff he was doing. You know, he never went anywhere. He was literally just a couple miles away. Yeah.
He watched you. He saw you again.
I have goosebumps.
Up until now, Jessica and Pat's daughter has only been known to the media as Jane Doe. When we come back, she's going to share her story publicly for the first time ever. Plus, are there more Kevin Schaus victims out there? Jessica and Pat claim another young girl recently confided in them that she was abused too. All of this after the break. Jessica and Pat's daughter was only 4 years old when Kevin Schaus was entrusted to babysit her while her mother was in labor. Now, Brittany Fish had been abducted the year before. These two girls have never met, but they have a definite connection. Shay, come on out. Good to meet you. Shay, meet Brittany. Well, Shay, thank you so much for being here, and you've been a Jane Doe till today, and you have been an integral part of this man being caught and this man being put behind bars. So God bless you for that, and God bless you for being here. Now, tell me why you chose to speak out.
I chose to speak out. I just think it would be good to get my story out there, to let other girls know they're not alone.
Yeah. And you thought for a long time, because you're 4 years old, that you had done something wrong. What were you saying to yourself? That's really important for parents to hear.
Like, why would this happen to me?
And how did you answer that question?
I haven't.
Both of you felt like instantly that you were at fault. You had done something wrong.
We were so young, so innocent. We had to feel like it was our fault at that point.
And Brittany, you have certain triggers, and you still suffer flashbacks and depression from this as well, right?
I do.
This just doesn't go away. How much have you talked with your daughter about this over the years?
We haven't.
We haven't.
At all?
At all.
We actually had believed that she didn't remember anything.
You discovered that she remembered everything when?
Just
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's been how many years?
15, about.
Just kept that to herself the whole time.
So for 15 years, you've been dealing with this in silence and alone. And you guys have been operating under the theory that if she doesn't have a conscious recollection of this, we don't want to awaken this sleeping.
Right. We were afraid that if we brought it all up to her and she didn't know, then we're throwing that all on top of an 18-year-old child.
How do you feel about that?
Awful.
Horrible. That's another reason why we're here, is to now, as a family, we can begin to try to heal.
You want to start to help.
Right.
And let her know.
Oh, yeah.
That she didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, she didn't. Neither of them did.
Yeah, none of these girls did anything wrong.
All right. Well, two of them sit here. Are there more Kevin Schaus victims out there? Well, we'll talk about that when we come back. At just 4 and 5 years old, Shay and Brittany were instrumental in the apprehension of serial child kidnapper Kevin Schaus. Now, this is, when I say serial, I don't think we know how many victims there are out there now. And I know, and John can help me with this, but in the literature, we know that these kind of offenders have in their lifetimes usually somewhere between 45 and 80 victims on average in their lives. John, true?
You're absolutely right. It's a compulsion they can't control, and they will keep offending and hurting and prey upon innocent, naive, beautiful young children until they're caught.
A family friend said Kevin did sexually abuse her at 4 years old, right? Yes. You've heard this from someone else. Yep. So there are other victims out there. I want to introduce someone that is a really good friend of mine. His name is Miles Adcox, and Miles is the owner and CEO of an organization called Onsite. Now, I consider Onsite to be the worldwide leader in intensive workshops and treatment specializing in trauma and emotional health. And Miles, please join me on stage up here if you would. We'll bring a chair up and put you up here. So good to see you, man. You too. I want to talk about this great facility and the life-changing programs that you have created over the last decade. I've been to Onsite, and it is an absolutely beautiful facility. It's located on a 250-acre campus among the scenic rolling hills of Tennessee. Miles, describe the type of amenities and facilities that you have at Onsite for people that come there to deal with trauma and the aftermath of that they're dealing with when they come to Onsite.
I think trauma survivors are some of the most powerful, creative, innovative people on the planet. As a person who runs a facility, it was important for me to treat them that way. Long in the treatment industry, in the behavioral health industry, there has been this hospital feel that when you come to a facility, it's what's wrong with you. It's not what's wrong with any of you, that you would become a better version of yourself. That's what's right with you. And when you come to a place, it should look and feel that way. It should feel beautiful. It should be a rewarding experience for your life, not one that feels like punishment. And that's what we've worked hard to curate, from the aesthetics, from the feel, from the staff. I want this to feel like the best and most hospitable vacation you've ever been on in your life, because you deserve it.
Now, Miles and Onsite have made a lasting impact on the guests that we have had here. Let's take a look.
My stepdad, Ralph, is a sick pervert. Things began when I was 17 years old. Every chance Ralph got, he would touch me.
Ralph abused me from the time I was a year old until age 5, and while my mom was at work.
What did you want to say?
I never touched you inappropriately, ever. I never touched your mother inappropriately. This is what really angers me. You are willing to destroy my life.
You have destroyed mine.
Hi, Dr. Phil. We just wanted to come on and say thank you so much for sending us to Onsite.
I have been able to graduate college. I started a family. I'm so grateful for what the Dr. Phil show and Onsite has given me.
When I got to college, I decided to sign up for a bodybuilding competition. I went from 140 pounds to 118 pounds. I worked out for 3 hours a day. I have gained 60 pounds since the competition. I hate the person that I see in those photos.
I think you're flirting with what is called body dysmorphia.
Hi, Dr. Phil and Miles. I'm so excited that I get to thank both of you for the life-changing experience that I received by going to Onsite workshops. The experience has changed my life, and I'm so excited that I get to say this to you. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to give a couple of examples of what steep hills they climb, and I'm saying that because I asked Miles to come here today because we want to make this available to both of you. Okay? Fair enough? All right. Next, I want to talk about what every parent needs to tell their child. It could save a life. You know, as John Walsh and I were just talking about, 95% of the time when there is an abduction, it just doesn't come to a happy ending. And the best defense is prevention. And I'm going to put on the website 10 steps that you can go over with your children and yourself about how to avoid an abduction. And one of the most important ones is to plan ahead. Take a look at this tape.
We've always been taught in the martial arts to fight on our feet, but that's not true with women and children, especially children that don't practice the martial arts. Their best defense, their biggest weapon is their voice, strongest weapon, their legs. She's going to go to the ground, have a temper tantrum, and go what we call chihuahua crazy. Is that a chihuahua or what, right? Okay, so ready?
All right,
so here we go. You ready? So, hey, come with me. Come here. Be quiet. Be quiet. I'm going to hurt you. Be quiet. Good job. Good job.
Rehearse this with them, role play this with them. And by the way, they'll love that. They love role playing this, but it could definitely save a life. I trust that both of you will avail yourself of this gift that we're talking about with Onsite.
Yes.
You deserve that. So special thanks to Miles, Adcox, and Onsite for offering resources to Brittany and Shay. I also want to thank John Walsh for all he has done and all that he does. His new show, In Pursuit with John Walsh, airs on Investigation Discovery every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I also want to thank McMahon Ryan Child Advocacy Center in Syracuse, New York, for all of their assistance with today's story, and Brittany Moncrief from Spectrum News. Thank you for your work on this and bringing so much to light in this story. If you believe your child is missing or has been abducted, the first few hours are the most critical. You can contact police with information, a picture of your child, what your child was wearing right away, and you can ask that your child's case be entered into the National Crime and Information Center, and you should also contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The hotline number is 1-800-THE-LOST. I'll have all of that information on our website. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. Don't forget to subscribe to my new podcast called Fill in the Blanks. That's P-H-I-L in the blanks. It's free, and you can listen every week. Thank you. We'll see you next time.